Alright guys, so what we're going to be talking about in this video is how to take two functions and multiply them together. So if you notice on your paper there was a little typo and didn't put the little multiplication point in there, but that's a multiplication right there. So what I have is g of x equals 2x minus 5 and h of x equals 4x plus 5. Now what I want to do is I want to multiply them together. So this right here is telling me take g multiplied by h, which is the same thing as g of x times h of x. So when I take my g of x, which is 2x minus 5, and I want to multiply it by 4x plus 5. So the way that I like to do this is I like to take each term and multiply it by the term in the other parentheses. So my first term is 2x. I'm going to take that and I'm going to multiply it by 4x plus 5 by using something we already know how to do, which is distributive property. Then I'm going to take my negative 5 and I'm going to multiply it by 4x plus 5, again as a distributive property. So my 2x times 4x, when I multiply, my coefficients multiply together, so that's 2 times 4, which is 8. Now my variables multiply. Whenever you multiply your variables, you add their exponents. Well, this is x to the first and x to the first. Add those together, it's going to give me x to the second power. Now 2x times 5, my coefficient of 2 is going to go with the 5 here, so 2 times 5 is positive 10. And then the x, there's no x here, so that's going to get dropped by itself. The next one here is going to be negative 5 times 4x, which is negative 20x, and negative 5 times positive 5, which is negative 25. The last thing I need to do here is I need to combine like terms, put things together. Well, 8x squared, there is no other x squared to go along with it, so it's going to get dropped by itself. The positive 10x and the negative 20x, those are going to go together, so it's going to be positive 10x, negative 20x, which is going to give me negative 10x, and then the last one by itself is negative 25. No more terms could get combined, so that will be my final answer. Alright, next one is h of x equals 3x plus 3, g of x equals negative 4x plus 1. Again, I'm going to multiply the two functions together, so that's going to be h of x times g of x. So it's going to give me 3x plus 3 times negative 4x plus 1. Again, take each term from here and multiply it by the terms that are in the other parentheses. So take 3x, I'm going to multiply it by negative 4x plus 1. Take positive 3, and I'm going to multiply it by negative 4x plus 1. So again, I'm going to distribute 3 times negative 4, negative 12, x times x, x squared. 3 times 3x times positive 1, anything times 1 is going to be itself, so it's going to give me 3x. Now over here, 3 times negative 4x, the 3 and the negative 4 will go together. That will give me negative 12x, and 3 times positive 1, which is positive 3. Lastly, I'm going to combine like terms. Well, the x squared, there is no other x squared over here, so that's going to go by itself. I have a positive 3x and a negative 12x. Those are going to go together to give me negative 9x. And then the last one that's left is positive 3. Voila, final answer. Alright, the next one we're going to be looking at, again, don't forget to put this times over here, is 4x minus 3, which is f of x, and g of x equals x cubed plus 2x. So again, this is f of x times g of x. So I'm going to take my f of x, which is 4x minus 3, and I'm going to multiply it by g of x, which is x cubed plus 2x. So I'm going to take my first term, 4x, I'm going to multiply it by my second parentheses, which is x cubed plus 2x. I'm going to take my negative 3, and I'm going to multiply it by x cubed plus 2x. So first I'm going to distribute this 4x. So there's a 1 here. So we know that 4 times 1 is going to give me 4. But I know that x times x cubed, remember we add the exponents, this is x to the first power, so it's going to give me x to the fourth power. And then 4 times 2x, 4 times 2 is 8, and then x times x is x squared. The next we're going to look at is the negative 3. Well, distribute this negative 3, there's a 1 here. that will give me negative 3x cubed, and then negative 3 to the 2x, which will give me negative 6x. Now lastly, I need to combine like terms. Well, if you notice there's 4x to the fourth, but no x to the fourth that's in here that I can combine it with, so it's going to get dropped down by itself. The next power that comes after the fourth is a third power. Well, that's a squared. Here's my third power. There is no other cubed here that's going to go along with it, so that's going to get dropped down as negative 3x cubed. Then the next power after the cubed is my squared. That's going to give me positive 8x squared. And then the last one, which would be negative 6x. And notice how they go from the highest power down to the lowest power. Alright, a couple more to go. Now I have g of n equals 3n plus 2, f of n equals 2n squared plus 5, and I'm going to multiply g of n times f of n. Well, g of n is 3n plus 2, and f of n is 2n squared plus 5. So I'm going to take my first term, 3n, and I'm going to multiply it by 2n squared plus 5. Then I'm going to take my second term, 2. I'm going to multiply it by 2n squared plus 5. So first I'm going to distribute 3n times 2n squared. Well, 3 and the 2 go together, that's 6. N times n squared is n to the third. 3n times 5, well, the 3 and the 5 go together. It'll give me 15, positive 15, and then don't forget your n. Then I'm going to take my 2 here. I'm going to distribute it. Well, the 2 and the 2 will give me 4 n squared, and then the 2 and the 5 will give me positive 10. Now I'm going to combine like terms. Now if you notice, there's a cubed. That's not going to go with anything over here, so that's going to get dropped down by itself. My next after a cube comes a squared. Here's my squared. There is no other squared here, so that's going to come down by itself. Then comes my 15n, and then my positive 10 at the end. Okay, and this one, we want to take g of n equals 3n plus 2, and f of n equals 2n squared plus 5. I want to evaluate it for g of 3 and then multiply it by f of 3. Well, I know that g of 3 is going to be 3 times 3 plus 2. Well, that's going to give me g of 3, which is 3 times 3 is 9, 9 plus 2 is 11. Now I know I could find f of 3, because f of 3 is going to be 2, 3 squared plus 5, which will give me f of 3 equals 2 times 9 plus 5, which will give me 18 plus 5, which will give me 23. Once I know f of 3, once I know g of 3, my last thing that I need to do here is take g of 3 and multiply it by f of 3. Well, 11 times 23, I only need to do this the long way. So 11 times 23, that's going to give me 33, 22, 253. And that was pretty fast. That will be my final answer. Alright, last one. See how fast we did this. Alright. So we again f times g of x. So again f of x times g of x. So my f of x is 2x cubed minus 5x squared. My g of x is 2x minus 1. So I'm going to take my first term, 2x cubed, and I'm going to multiply it by 2x minus 1. Then I'm going to take my second term, negative 5x squared, and I'm going to multiply it by 2x minus 1. Let's go ahead and start the distribution. So it's going to give me 2x cubed times 2x, which is going to give me 4x to the fourth. 2x cubed minus 1, negative 2x cubed. Negative 5x squared times 2x, negative 10x to the third. Negative 5x squared times negative 1, positive 5x squared. Then I'm going to combine like terms. 4x to the fourth, there is no fourth power here, so that's going to get dropped down by itself. Negative 2x cubed and a negative 10x cubed, those are going to be like terms, so those are going to go together. And it's going to give me negative 12x cubed. And then the last one is going to give me positive 5x squared by itself. Now the second part of this question is telling me to take f times g, which is what we just found here, and it's telling me to evaluate it for 2. That means I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to apply it inside of my x's. So that's going to give me 4, parenthesis, 2 to the 4th power, minus 12, parenthesis, 2 to the 3rd power, plus 5, parenthesis, 2 to the 2nd power. So evaluate your PEMDAS, use PEMDAS to evaluate your exponents first. Evaluate your PEMDAS, who says that, right? So 2 to the 4th power, so that's 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16. So that's going to give me 4 times 16 minus 2, that's going to give me 12, and then 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, and then plus 5, and that's going to give me times 4, because 2 squared is 4. Now multiplication comes next. 4 times 16 is going to give me 64. 8 times 12 is going to give me, and it's, remember, that's a negative 12. So negative 12 times 8 is going to give me negative 96. And then 5 times 4 is going to give me positive 20. Then I'm just going to go from left to right. That's going to give me 64 minus 96, which will give me negative 32. Negative 32 plus 20, which will give me negative 12. All right, check my math. Sure, I went wrong somewhere. Or maybe I didn't because I'm perfect, right? So, hope you all enjoyed it. I know it's a little difficult concept, but we'll get the hang of it. All right? See y'all soon. Bye-bye.